decade earlier. Your predecessor as foreign minister traveled to India in 2018, and our minister of state was in Bucharest some years before that. The 18th meeting of our Joint Economic Commission met in 2017. So you can see that there's been regular contacts, but I'm sure we can do better. And certainly, Minister, I would welcome you in India, and I'll really see if, as the travel restrictions ease up, whether, there's an early opportunity for me to come as well. Now, where trade is concerned, we hit a high of US dollars 810 million turnover in 2017-18. We've come down a bit after that. But of course, the last year, 2 years have been tough because of COVID. The trade basket is largely composed of machinery and equipment, chemicals, pharmaceuticals, metallurgy, medical equipment, and vehicles. Our companies have invested in each other's economy. And certainly from the Indian side, I can tell you that some of our big names in steel, in IT, in pharma, they are present in Romania. Cultural cooperation also has a long history, and we note how enthusiastically yoga is celebrated every year in Romania. An Indian community of about 10,000, which includes students, are an important link between us. And obviously, it is our endeavor to grow this relationship further. I want to share with you that there's a particularly strong focus on its economic side. Now, it's also important to appreciate that Romania would benefit significantly from the expansion of India's cooperation with the European Union. Many of you would be aware that there was a landmark summit this May between our Prime Minister and the EU 27 leaders in Portugal. One of its important outcomes is the resumption of our FTA negotiations that have been stalled from 2015, from the time of the previous government. Not just that, there has been already some progress in that regard, and actually the formal talks start this month. We have also agreed to conclude early an investment agreement and one on geographical indicators. The India-EU connectivity partnership is also important for its bilateral implications, its quality connotations, and its third country possibilities. The strategic convergence between India and the EU is reflected in our positions on key regional and global issues, including, I must add, on Afghanistan and the Indo-Pacific. I'm sure that this will be duly noted by Romanian diplomats. Between our national and EU engagements, there is every reason to be optimistic about our continued cooperation. One reason why that is essential from the Romanian perspective is the likelihood that India will play a more visible role in global politics in the days to come. India's economic weight has already grown substantially, as indeed has its political influence. We are today members of the G20. Currently, we are a non-permanent member of the Security Council, of the EAS, of BRICS, of SCO, Quad, SAARC, BIMSTEC, IORA. So there's a long list out there. In our own vicinity, the Neighborhood First policy, pursued since 2014, has strengthened connectivity, contacts, and commerce. India's growth is a tide lifting the larger region in the quest for prosperity. Towards Southeast Asia and beyond, the Act East policy has added security, connectivity, and greater societal contacts to a robust economic partnership. Now, this has now further developed into what has become known as an Indo-Pacific vision that contemplates opportunities much more seamlessly. To the West, a Link West outlook has actually transformed our ties with the Gulf states and fashioned a strategic construct that goes beyond energy, trade, and the diaspora. To the south, the Sagar Maritime Initiative has taken an integrated view of cooperation with various island and littoral states. With Africa, an ambitious development partnership and a larger footprint. In fact, all our new embassies we have opened in Africa has given a traditional relationship a new scale. India's engagement today extends through established mechanisms from the Pacific Islands on our east to the Caribbean on our west. Now, these developments may pertain to specific regions and theaters, but together they connote something much larger for the international order. The re-emergence of a civilizational state like India drives the rebalancing of world affairs in a significant manner. Obviously, that phenomenon has other aspects such as the rise of China, the growth of ASEAN, etc. But this rebalancing is today sufficiently advanced to create a more multipolar global architecture. In such a world, the challenge that diplomacy faces is to navigate the different poles and arrive at an optimal positioning. By its very nature, that is a dynamic and actually a perpetual exercise. The takeaway for those in our profession is that the emerging order really calls for a new type of foreign policy. The other undeniable reality of our times is, of course, the growth of globalization. Spanning virtually all the domains of human activity, it has led to interpenetration and interdependence of a kind that could not have been imagined earlier. Equally important, this has been actually a constraining factor on competition and has encouraged new forms of power and influence. At one level, it has strengthened the indivisibility of certain challenges like climate change, terrorism, and pandemics. But on the other hand, it has stirred a debate on the optimal nature of globalization. The COVID-19 pandemic has clearly made all nations of the world much more aware of external risks and vulnerabilities. It has raised questions about the centralized aspects of globalization, the debate I spoke about, and highlighted the importance of trust and transparency. Many states have defined their national security and strategic autonomy in a more expansive manner as a result. An issue that has emerged strongly on the global agenda is the requirement for resilient and reliable supply chains. Some of this is an objective demand, some arise from the behavior of states. But together, there is a wider appreciation today of the importance of global cooperation, particularly among states who share values and respect rules. So let me say that India and Romania, we have a significant convergence in our outlook of the world and of its contemporary challenges. Our cooperation has a larger beneficial impact as well. I'm very appreciative of the opportunity today to share some of our thinking with you, and I'll be delighted to take this conversation forward in the time which is left. Thank you.
Minister Jaishankar, for your insightful contribution to the works of our meeting. This ends the public part of this session, and we will continue shortly with the debate.